Hi, I'm Jesse Rass, and you've jumped inside the vast comic book world of the Pull Bag, only on the Geekcast Radio Network.
Welcome to the Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with a rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag. This is episode 138. I am, of course, TFG on Mike, and this is the finale for the Eternity War. He-Man, the Eternity War from DC Comics. Joining me, as always, is Skeletor.
Did you hear?
What am I supposed to have heard?
According to the U.S. News, I've been dethroned as the world's biggest monster.
Oh no. You're really not going to pull that trump card, are you?
At least I have average-sized hands.
At least you're not the annoying orange.
Yeah, that works too.
Oh my god. That's all the news is. Every time I look at anybody posting links on, it's not like Geek News before the election was all over Facebook. Now it's Trump this, Trump. Oh my god. I would rather have fake news.
I'm sure some of it's fake news.
Oh, I'm sure. But we are here. This is episode 138 of the Pull Bag. We are going to be closing out our He-Man the Eternity War coverage, as I said, talking issues 14 and 15. And then at the end, we'll give you a taste of what's to come here in the Pull Bag over the next couple of months and things like that. This is the end. The time is nigh for He-Man and his Eternity War. So the cover for issue 14 is Castle Green. Oh, I'm sorry, not Castle Green Skull, Castle Gray Skull, because they actually.
When's the last we saw it like that?
I know, right?
It feels like an eternity.
Yes. The last time we saw classic Castle Grayskull was before Hordak had the power, which was issue 9. I believe it was issue 9 that the cover happened. Where did that cover happen? Yes, it was issue 9 that the cover of the issue is the Hordak looking Castle Grayskull. But yeah, we got classic Castle Grayskull here. We've got the Snake Staff. Well, yeah. So we got 2 power swords, both the power swords. We've got Tila's Snake Staff. We've got Evelyn's Wand of Watum, or whatever it is. Sorry, bad Doctor Strange joke. And I still have yet to see that movie. I know I need to see that at some point. But we got the Havoc Staff and a bunch of other weapons. And in the very part of the background of the cover, we've got Castle Grayskull and a powered-up, souped-up Franklin Jella-looking type Skeletor over.
He looks like an Eternian mummer.
An Eternian mumra?
No, mummer.
Oh, okay.
It's a local thing. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
So basically, around New Year's Day, the Philadelphia area has this big parade, and it's called the Mummers Day Parade, and it's all made up of these blue-collar guys who get up in these elaborate Mardi Gras-esque costumes and parade around downtown.
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome. What did you think of the cover here?
It's nice to see the castle back to its roots.
Yes.
I mean, I was looking at the front here, and I'm thinking, okay, let's see if I can name all these weapons. And as you get to the back, I'm not 100% sure. Only if I could look further into this. And I hit the expand button, and say, oh, I can make out everything here.
Yep.
Of course, it's got some of the villains' weapons, so it makes you think, did the villains join the heroes in a war against Skeletor? Wait, what?
Yeah. We open up with Snake and Bat fighting still, because it's Evelyn versus Tila. And I wish they would use this design for Evelyn a hell of a lot more. I love this design of her.
Yeah, I mean, at this point with Super 7, we could get a figure of that down the line.
That would be awesome. The story opens with Tila realizing that, basically, it was like 1,000 tiny voices cried out and they were suddenly silenced. Hey, anytime I can fit in a Obi-Wan Alderaan reference, I'm going to. So they're in the... What? Oh, yeah.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. So they're in the middle of this battle, and Tila has a sudden disturbance of the Force, and she wants to go to them, but Evelyn will not let her, which is very interesting. Once again, like I said, if Super 7 did do a figure of this version of Evelyn, that would be so awesome. That figure that character design for her looks absolutely amazing. And we find out that He-Man is back, and he doesn't exactly look like Iron Man armor, but it's still kind of not,
It's Kirby Asgardian armor, basically.
Yeah, because it's nowhere near New Adventures, I know that. But it's pretty much red and it's pretty much gold with a little hot rod red in there, and then of course
with the weird Tony Stark holograms all over it.
Yeah.
Like the little tech designs. I don't know what the hell's going on there.
Tony Stark designed a He-Man suit for Adam. Wow.
If you can do it for Spider-Man, you can do it for just about anyone.
That's true. And we get our first kind of really good looks at Skeletor in his powered up form, and I really dig this version of Skeletor. I obviously love the classic Filmation 2002 cartoon versions of Skeletor, but this version is pretty friggin' cool.
It reminds me a lot of Skeleton Warriors.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I prefer the classic design, but, it's something different.
Yep. And it's cool. To get the creative out of the way, Dan Abnett is on script. Pop Mahan is back as the artist. Mark Roberts is still on colors. The story was done by Rob David. So again, as I've questioned several times beforehand, and when we've done the other episodes for this series, if the script is done by Abnett and the story is done by David, Rob David, how much actual who actually writes this stuff? Like, does Rob David just say, okay, here's a story I wrote, now you just go script it out for us? Like, seriously, like, how does that work?
I don't know, maybe one has a basic idea and then the other breaks it down.
Yeah. Like, they couldn't have just said story by Dan Abnett and Rob David. Like, they have to break it down. And I've always had that issue with DC most of the time, because if they distinguish it like that, like I could see if they had credits of written by and then 3 or 4 names, but that's not how this is. But oh well, it doesn't really matter. As we go through here, after the credits, after the opening credit panel shot, which I do absolutely love, this opening credits panel shot where He-Man has got his sword raised, and he says "For Eternia," and the sun's in the background, and Fisto and Many-Faces. I do really love that shot, but it's basically them versus the dead souls of Eternia in Etheria, because Skeletor is death incarnate now.
Pretty much. I mean, at this point, there are a couple of panels where the proportions are really out of whack. Yeah. Like if you look at the page before this, the top left-hand panel, especially with He-Man. I mean, with Skeletor, he's got these weird. I mean, he's not necessarily human, so you can kind of give it a pass. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. What were those toys that came out? Maybe 2 years ago for the Masters of the Universe, the little short ones.
Oh yeah, not mini mates, but there's something like mini mates. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they have the proportions of that.
Yeah. And you're talking about in the panel where Skeletor is saying, "And I don't know how you survived, Adam, or why the power has returned to you." Is that the panel you're talking about where he's on the bottom and Yeah, it almost looks like, and I love the art, I love the colors, but just the way the page is laid out, the way that the characters are positioned on the page, it doesn't, like, He-Man looks like he's reeling back from something, but Skeletor isn't actually attacking him. He's just standing over him. And to me, it's
have the high ground.
Well, to me, it's like, you see a lot of the old, classic movies and old movies, like, before all the CGI and everything, where it's like, oh, we had to use miniatures to get that's what this reminds me of, is those old movies, late 70s, early 80s movies where they had to film miniature versions of certain things to get a special effect done. Yeah. And yeah, the proportions are always... And the other thing is, if you look at Adam throughout the first whole, his reveal where he says, I know what you have planned, Skeletor, that reveal of him, he looks huge in that, and then panels after that, like the panel, where, basically the title shot panel where he says, for Eternia, he still looks huge, but again, it's the positioning of what he's doing, his action pose. It just, his arm looks bigger than, I don't know. It's just a little strange.
There's two things on this page which I'm noticing for the first time. Mm-hmm. One of which is the hilarious shot of Ram Man bouncing into action.
Yeah.
For a comic series that's trying to play itself a little more serious, he's got the Filmation legs that's springing out. And if you notice, you'll probably get a kick out of this, just above the Phantom Triclops head, what do you see?
Just above the Phantom Triclops head.
Above it.
Above it. Oh, yeah, wow.
It's the ghost of Loki.
Yeah.
So apparently he's dead.
That's a good thing, though.
Uh-huh.
That's a good thing, though. One thing I absolutely love is the close-up on the panel with Skeletor, where he's saying, he says, and when I slay the goddess, her death will feed me too, and I will become more. I just love that close-up of his face. It looks so cool.
Very menacing.
Yes.
We don't get that a lot from him.
And we see He-Man looking at all the ghosts, and he basically lists them off, and, Vicron, Hero, Sir Laserlot. Of course, they had to put Sir Laserlot in there. Thanks a lot, Nightlick. And of course,
where was Nightlick's toy?
Oh, Laserlot wasn't his toy. That was
Jeff Johns.
That was Jeff Johns. That's right.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and of course, Breadman is here too.
Mm-hmm.
Wondar. Why the hell they put Wondar in there? I have no idea. We go back to Evelyn and Teela, and Evelyn pretty much kills her for the most part. I mean, she's stepping on her, and Teela's calling out to Zor, and Zor shows up, or a spirit of the sorceress shows up, and doesn't exactly go too well for Teela. She looks like she's gonna die, and she passes on magic to She-Ra, or does some sort of magical thing.
She spits on her staff. What?
All I could think of is, my name is Robbins. Robin swallows. Well, spits or swallows, it doesn't matter. All I can think of is Austin Powers, that bad spit or swallow joke.
I had to say it.
Yes, you did. So we get She-Ra again, and we get a classic sort of protection sword here. Of course, it'll change once she gets more powered up, but I really wish they would have kept the classic swords.
Yeah, so what is the explanation with using the classic swords? It's just the depowered version?
I guess. I don't know. Because if remember, I think it was last podcast we did with issue 13. At the very end of that, the power was gone out of the sword, and the jewel wasn't even what it is now, where we see it's glowing red. It was just dark. Yeah. And because supposedly the power was gone, but now apparently because Tila has rejuvenated or revived or done something with She-Ra, the Sword of Protection is getting more power again, and it's going to get so much power that it will eventually turn back into the souped-up power sword that, secondary version to He-Man's sword. I prefer the classic power sword. I've said this throughout all 15 comic issue. Well, we're not to issue 15 yet, but I've said this throughout the whole Eternity War coverage that we've done. I prefer them to have the classic power swords. I get it; they need more power to destroy Hordak, Skeletor, the Eyes of Grayskull, whatever. But I just like seeing the classic sword more than just some souped-up hunk of metal.
I completely agree.
So we got She-Ra versus Hordak, and he's basically telling her that she has to, being She-Ra, she's both Adora and Despara at the same time, and she needs to choose a side and all that. We get He-Man versus King Grayskull, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I thought they would have backed him up.
Yeah, it's the ghost of King Grayskull because all these souls are dead and Skeletor.
But they still have the power.
Yeah, that's true. Man-at-Arms D-Wraithed has shown up to Tila, and he gives his life for hers. So Man-at-Arms is now dead, so Tila can live, and we see a ghost version of the Sorceress, which we need a figure of that. That would be a cool. Just basically take the Masters Classic Sorceress figure and just paint her in those colors. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. So Tila is alive. She-Ra is still fighting Hordak. And this, this is where I was saying earlier where he says you are the She-Ra, you are a split between Adora and Despara, and that you need to choose, and she's like, yeah, well, I'm going to choose good. I'm not going to choose evil. And we get more from He-Man and Skeletor. And once again, Pop Mahan's art on this is just absolutely amazing. The way Skeletor looks facing off against He-Man and just the effects of all this looks great.
Yeah, I'm really digging the choreography from panel to panel.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it just looks, oh, okay, here he's punching her. But no, it looks like shot. I can picture this being filmed or animated.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the coolest panels we have is where Skeletor is saying, our battle is tearing Eternia apart. By choosing to fight me, you have only ushered in the end. And then He-Man says, you're insane, you're mortal, you'll destroy yourself along with everything else. He says, will I? Let's find out. That blown up panel right there from the Comixology guided view, oh man, that looks like an awesome panel. So we got more She-Ra and Hordak, and this is interesting for her because she says that she's not going to rest until those souls see the light as well. Every soul except yours. And apparently that's what powers her up, and we have a Who's Next panel, which that is so a Wonder Woman line. It really is. It really is.
It just confuses me a little bit how these are non-corporeal entities, and yet they're all able to slay them as if they were flesh and bone.
Yeah, that's a little strange. I don't get that at all. That Yeah, I don't know, because you would think that if they're not corporeal, the swords and stuff would just go right through them.
Yeah.
So as we go along, we've got He-Man and Skeletor again, and again some of the background effects in this shot here, where Skeletor says, "I will defy fate itself. I have one last rebellion left in me. I will defeat you, even if it means destroying life." The way that the panel is of Skeletor's power and He-Man's power combined, I just love the way the light is shown off the sword versus Skeletor's actual power. I think that is so friggin' cool.
And now he's starting to sound like himself again. I'll murder us all. He doesn't care.
Nope. Doesn't care at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then we have, I am He-Man. I am the master of eternity. Together with every last soul in the universe, I defy you. I will push back the darkness. And of course...
He gets a power-up, and what screams power-up? Who needs one blade when you can have two on one sword?
Yeah, I think that's an homage to something? I don't know. Maybe...
Just a giant bladed tuning fork.
Yeah, pretty much. And I like the way these panels here, where he says, "I'm the master of eternity, and I will push back the darkness by the power of Grayskull." I know they're in two very different places for He-Man and She-Ra, but I almost wish that this scene was them side by side. But I understand why they can't do that, is because he's fighting Skeletor at one point of Castle Grayskull, and she is trying to destroy the eyes of Grayskull while fighting off the ghost of Hordak. And we have the power thing here with the two of them. She destroys the eyes. He defeats Skeletor, and Castle Grayskull is reborn in some sort of weird floating fortress fashion.
Basically the floating Asgard over what, Kansas or Kentucky from the comics like years ago.
Yeah. Oh my god. And Adam, He-Man pretty much depowers while he's holding his sword, and she's still She-Ra. And I love that it's been so serious at this point with all the death and destruction and the way that Skeletor was going to do this. And then we come in and we have anyone know a good seamstress? Kind of exposed here. And, basically... not even really a half-naked Tila. She's hardly naked at all.
Yeah, because the way she's holding that now, kind of clutching the opening in her center shot, this is probably the most clothed we've seen her.
Yeah. In the whole time we've been talking about all of the DC comics, this is probably the most clothed we've ever seen her. Mm-hmm. The one question on everybody's mind is, what happens... now, and next issue, the future begins. I don't like Castle Grayskull in this final panel. It just looks fucked up and weird to me.
Yeah, into the second issue, or the final issue, it's not necessarily a castle as it is an entire city.
Yeah, but the way that it's on this last panel where they say so I have one question, what happens now? The way it looks to be is it looks too small. Like, okay, we get it, folks. There are a lot of things that are bigger on the inside, but just the way this castle looks is that it does not look like it could fit a whole city inside of it.
Right.
I enjoyed issue 14. I think it was a hell of a lot better than issues 11, 12, and almost better than 13. I enjoyed the big battle with Skeletor, but it just seemed to me that they were, and I said this last episode we did with this, they're going to wrap it up fairly quickly. This issue 14, we've had up-teen amounts of cameos. We had the Luki cameo one last time. We've got Hero, Grayskull, what did I say, Vicron or Vicor or whatever. We've got all these cameos from all these dead masters. We've got Evelyn and Teela. We've got Skeletor and He-Man. We got She-Ra and Hordak. And it just seems like they're trying to throw so much at us so they can then give us a final issue that basically just closes it out. And I enjoyed issue 14, even rereading it again now for this, but it just seems like something I've said the whole time we've been covering this series. It seems like the story doesn't know where it wants to go, or it has no direction because they're ending it after the next issue. What are your overall thoughts and all that stuff?
It ran on for a while. Mm-hmm. And so it's finally nice to start to pick up towards the end. But it's a final battle like every other final battle we've seen in however many iterations of the DC Comics we've had with this. So it just feels more of the same. And when we get to issue 15 at the end, it's more of the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really, really is. Which is kind of disappointing. Again, I have, outside of some of the like you said earlier about some of the choreography and some of the positioning of the characters, I have absolutely nothing to say negatively about Pop Mahan's art or Mark Roberts' colors. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, no.
But the stories in this series, they build up, they try to tell us something, they try to give us something. They then go to the fan wank mode of, we've got to throw this in for everybody. We got to do this. We got to do that. And then the story ends up going nowhere.
Yeah, it feels like they want to go someplace new and interesting, but they're so beholden to the standard of what these characters have been for the past 30 years. And
now, do you think it's because of Mattel? Like, do you think, okay, look, Rob David is the story person, Dan Abnett is the script person. Do you think it's whatever deal Mattel and DC have for... I know it's not a figure deal because Super 7 has the figure, so it can't be to sell toys. It cannot be to sell...
They changed the look of the characters enough, but the plot line just seems like something we've seen a million times before.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of stuck in a corner of where to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's like, as I was saying, is it something that Mattel told DC, okay, you can only do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and we only want it to go for this many issues. We don't want... And again, it's something I've said since we started this. Several of these series, the 2012 6-issue miniseries, the 8-issue digital series, several of these we knew were going to be just miniseries or whatever. Like the 3 origin issues that Kevin and I did, He-Man, Skeletor, and Hordak, we knew those were going to be one-shots. But, when the 2013 quote-unquote ongoing series happened, is it because of the comics not selling that well? Or what was the thing of, this is a new ongoing. It's going to be ongoing for a while now. It only lasted 19 issues. The way that this was a new He-Man ongoing, Eternity War. It's going to be the best part of Masters and Comics history. And it only has 15 issues. And I'm like, really? Seriously?
Well, I think unless you're IDW at this point, who does the cartoon-based comics, when you get licenses like this through Marvel and DC, I feel like you're not going to get a ongoing. You'll get kind of a limited ongoing.
Yeah. Which
is the case in this.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with them doing a limited ongoing, or if they're going to do like I said, a miniseries. Like, I know He-Man Thundercats, which is what we'll cover next. I know that's only going to be 6 issues. So I'm fine. If they're going to if they're in 6 issues, if they're going to tell me a story, beginning, middle, and end throughout those entire 6 issues, I'm fine with that. But again, all the news items for the 2013 series and for this series, every comic website I went to said, these are going to be new on at different times, obviously, because one ended and the other one picked up. But these are going to be new ongoings, and they're going to tell all these stories, and every Masters fan is going to love it. And oops, sorry, technically it's just 19 issues and 15 issues. You're screwed.
Yeah.
But and issue 15, which we're going to get into here in a minute, but issue 15, I'll say this right now. It sort of tells a story, and then halfway through it turns into a Lusheimer PSA. So issue 14, what would you rate it 0 to 5?
I guess a 3.
I'll give it a 3.5, only because I really enjoyed seeing the Sword of Protection, the classic Sword of Protection again. I would have given it a 4 if we had seen, if they had chose to mimic the scene from Secret of the Sword with the two swords are being held and He-Man's in the background in the Magna Beam trance charger thing. Mm-hmm. There's a shot in Secret of the Sword where the animation on the swords is it makes them look like they're 3-dimensional instead of 2-dimensional. And I would have absolutely loved to have had that here, but we didn't. So I'll give this a 3.5. So issue 15, the cover is He-Man standing in front of Castle Grayskull with the souped-up sword. As covers go, it's good. It's interesting, but it's kind of like
he's wearing armor again, but not armor.
Yeah. So as we start with this one, we start with He-Man's dreaming. We have this whole narration of what he and the Masters and everybody is doing, and Dan Abnett on script again. Pop Mahan is the artist. Mark Roberts on colors. Story by Rob David. Special thanks to Gabriel De La Torre and Lloyd Goldfine. I know Lloyd had done several things with Masters in the past, so that's nice to see that they were working on this. And Chapter 15, Facing the Future. We finally see a shot of Cringer. Mm-hmm. It's been a while since we've seen Cringer, not just Battlecat, but Cringer. And yeah, go ahead.
I guess it's a double-page spread of He-Man running, but there are all these silhouettes of different characters in the background.
Yeah.
Most of which I can make out. I can't tell who that female is, though.
Which one?
The one near near He-Man's forearm.
Okay. Probably Tila.
Yeah, I figured just as much. It's just the headdress seems odd. But the other ones have characteristics that you'd be able to pull from all the other ones.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a little weird. So we see an opening shot of Castle Grayskull, and we see that it is some sort of weird city. And hey, look, Zodak. Zodak is here. So that's nice.
Yeah.
I don't know what to... I mean, it's Zodak. He never really interferes.
Yeah, riding his Metron chair.
Yeah. And Adam is asking him, wait, don't go. What is my purpose now? And Zodak, throughout internal dialogue, says, for Skeletor, he says, look to Castle Grayskull. It has always been more than just power. For Skeletor, it represented legitimacy. For She-Ra, it's about redemption. You must decide what it means for you. And everyone is flocking to Grayskull.
Including the dinosaurs. So, I mean, I might have been missing something, but was the rest of Eternia destroyed?
Well, there were fright zones all over the place, remember?
Okay.
Hordak took over the entire planet, just like he did on Etheria. So...
I mean, but because the Castle Grayskull turned into Hordak,
right.
One would think with Hordak gone, everything would kind of turn back to itself, whereas the castle did.
Yeah. And like you said, apparently the castle has turned into its own city, which is... It's just weird to me. Like, if you look at the outside shot here where where someone is saying, more refugees arrive every day, my lord. Survivors from the war and the trials of Hordak's occupation. You look at the castle right there. That castle does not look like it's big enough to house an entire city.
Yeah, it's probably built like Brazil.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to have to edit this because I have to cough. I can't take it anymore. Oh, God. Crap. And we have another... all right, so edit point over. We have another point of bearded Stratos, which is interesting.
Wait, did we... Okay, we skipped the Shira and Tila exchange.
Shira and Tila exchange. I'm not there yet. Bearded Stratos is before that because it's part of the city.
Okay. Yeah,
Shira and Tila are after. They're in the school. That's after. So no, Bearded Stratos is where he's saying, "Here they can survive, my lord. We must do more than survive, old friend. We must thrive." So again, another slight difference in Stratos' I mean, obviously we're happy without his mask, but if you look at him in this panel with Adam, he's just like I don't know what he looks like, but he looks different than what he looked like in the last couple issues when he was fighting and his helmet was off.
Just looks like he's Amish.
You said it, not me. Oh, good old Harrisburg Greyhound Station. That was a horrible, horrible night. Anyway, because I spent time in Pennsylvania for a while.
Yeah.
It was a day and a half of hell, but I'll tell you about that later. Thankfully, it was over 15 years ago. So we get to Tila, who is now a teacher. She and Shira are coming in and showing everybody various things. Now, what did you like about this exchange between the two of them?
Well, I'm scratching my head as to why Tila is a teacher now. It seems to go against everything that she is. She's a warrior, and they never painted her like. I'm not saying she's dumb, or by any stretch of the yeah. But she can be a little cold-hearted. Mm-hmm. She doesn't seem to be the type that has the patience for children or the knowledgeable in the teaching in sense of teaching, where I feel like, maybe she's teaching kids battle tactics.
Yeah, that's well, I think it's where she's teaching them about Eternia, and she's teaching them about Castle, how Castle Grayskull, and it's essentially a history lesson. And since her dad is dead, because he would probably be the one doing this. If Man-at-Arms was still alive in this series, he would probably be the one. You're right. He would probably be the one here telling them a story, and all I can hear is, Alan Oppenheimer, Man-at-Arms in my head now, if he was actually here, telling them a story of the history of Eternia. But because he's not here, Tila has to step in and do it herself, and it kind of works, only to serve as her and Shira having a moment, because they do, which is interesting and cool. And we go back to Adam and Stratos, and they're showing that Castle Grayskull is going to be, the stationary point, and then we're going to spread the power out over the entire planet, because not one person should have that much power.
Fair enough, and seems appropriate.
Yep. The one thing I can't buy, and again, Pop Mahan, I love you, man, but the one thing I cannot buy is that giant-ass sword on Adam's back.
Yeah, especially Howard.
Yeah, because where I don't buy it is a panel later where it's the panel where Shira comes in. where he's standing there. Stratos is to the left, and She-Ra is behind him. The sword is almost as tall as Adam is.
And how is it attached to him? Does he have on his back?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, how is that there? That makes no sense. So She-Ra comes in, and she says that she cannot stay. She has to go back to Etheria. They hug and all that, and we see a shot of her and Swiftwind riding off from Grayskull. I would love a print of this, like an 18 by 18 poster print of this. That's an odd. As much as I don't really care for that souped up Castle Grayskull, this is just an awesome shot of her and Swiftwind.
Indeed.
So she returns to Etheria. Adam and Teela start to have a moment because Teela still has some of the magic, and you know, we get into now part of the story of Teela taking up her father's mantle and with the inventions and recreating Roboto and still her feeling the loss of all the snake men and all the souls, and she doesn't want that feeling to fade, and all of a sudden they kiss, and then we get to the wedding.
Bang.
Okay, so we don't even have, like, this is what is so surprising to me about this. We have this moment with them, you know, where Adam is saying, it's your future, I just hope I can be a part of it, and then they have the kiss. And the way they set the kiss up is that, you know, they're barely, you know, they're almost locking lips, and then we cut to the wedding. And I'm like, how much time has passed? Like, in the last issue, we had a panel where it was like, where it said months later. So how much time has passed from this little point of them, you know, at the end of this little point here where Teela says, ooh, no pressure. That's what I want to know. How much time actually passed between that and the wedding?
Well, I liken it to the end of The Wedding Singer, where they kind of make a jump towards the end and there's a wedding. Okay.
Although I just can't see Adam being a wedding singer. Anyway. I do love that dress of Teela's, though.
This mushy moment.
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. I do love the wedding garb that they're both in, because again, it's different than we've seen. Because Adam, not He-Man, Adam throughout the entire series, when he has been Adam, he's either in purple pants and a red shirt and with white sleeves, or black pants, or whatever. And Teela, now that she's Teela again, is in her traditional. It's not really traditional, but it's close enough to the classic look of Teela's outfit. But when we get to the wedding part, I just love that dress, and I love what he's wearing too. I just think that is so very cool.
Yeah, it has little hints of the Horde to it because there's so much red, but
yeah,
it's a nice design. It doesn't feel too awkward.
Yeah, absolutely. We then go to the Isle of Enwat Gar, and we go back to Evelyn. And
surprise.
Yep. And she brings Skeletor back. I assume that's what's happening.
It does look like he has a skull for a head, so did she bring him back in semi-Gar form?
Oh, no. You know what might have happened?
What? Or is that... is that just his neck?
No, that's not just his head's not floating, dude. But, you know, she says, may he be healed and reborn. Maybe she rebirthed him as Keldor.
Maybe.
Because I remember earlier in the series that he wanted She-Ra's healing powers to change him from Skeletor back to Keldor. So maybe Evelyn found a way to get him back to Keldor and not Skeletor.
Right, and he's just bald. But of course, we'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never know. So we've got the wedding celebration. We've got the fires of eternity. and He-Man forging another new sword, I guess. And we see all the various versions of the weapons here as he's forging this. We see his old armor. We don't really see the classic power sword, but we see all the various versions of it that he's used throughout the series, except for the classic Filmation. And technically, the one that's in his hand now is somewhat of an updated version of the classic. And this is where the PSA starts, folks. Pretty much. Not bad. There you are. Welcome, welcome. I've been expecting you. Are you ready? You have the power. Never the end.
It was cheesy, but at the same time, I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, you know, we're done with this property or the series. We're just going to hand it off to you because the whole thing about Masters, at least the toy line, is because it was all up to your imagination.
Yeah. Issue 15's a little weird. Weird. It really, really is. It's a, I don't know. It's a very strange ending here. What did you think of this? Because I just don't know.
I think it might have worked better if it was Adam forging the sword this time around, rather than He-Man.
Right. Yeah, I really do think that's what it should have been. Is Adam doing it instead of He-Man?
Because the whole thing of the series was the power of Adam rather than resting on He-Man's abilities.
Right, absolutely. And we even saw in several, you know, that whole part of that one part of the story arc where we go to the future, and it's the future where He-Man essentially takes over. There's no more Adam. He's He-Man all the time, and he's basically turned into a tyrant. And you know, so we saw that potential of the future, and you know, that's not what he wanted. He wanted, you know, a better future, and yeah, I don't know. The series ending to this was very, very strange. Like I said before, I love the final battle with Skeletor. I love the battle with She-Ra and Hordak and all that. I think that was great. I love all the cameos and everything else, but honestly, they could have just said something at the end of, like, the end of issue 14 where they're like, what's next? And then they could have teased like another, like a short 5-issue miniseries or 4. Again, like you said earlier, this is a kind of a problem when DC gets a licensed property like this. They're not IDW. That's what I want. I want somehow for Mattel to dissolve their relationship with DC and get one with IDW. Because if IDW had the He-Man comics, oh my god, that would be amazing.
Of all the most recent DC comics, I feel like the digital miniseries work best. Granted, you're not going ahead in the story. This is all kind of adding to the story that we've had thus far, kind of like Rogue One.
Right.
But it's definitely in a different direction. You get to see Evil Lyn in a different light.
Yep.
Introduced to that guy in the long jacket that kind of reminds you of Deckard from Blade Runner.
Right. Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, I enjoyed doing the recordings with you, and I enjoyed doing I enjoyed reading the comics, but after looking back at them, it's like, oh my god, like, some of these stories are great. Some of the things that they worked into the story, some of the homages, like I said, some of the fan wanking was fine, it was amazing, it was awesome. Out of all the He-Man stuff that we've done from DC at this point, I gotta say, the best storytelling point was Dark Orko. I'm sorry to say it, but as far as a character development, as far as a character change, and as far, you know, really, like, the DC versus Masters thing, that was, I think, the best part of the story, because you had at that time Randor was still around. It was not King Hiss at that time, I don't think. And then you go to Earth, and we see oh my God, Marlene. Because that was the other thing. Like, what the hell? Throughout all of this He-Man continuity that DC has had since that 2012 miniseries, what the hell happened to Marlena? Why isn't she on Eternia with Randor? Why isn't this? Why isn't that? And come to find out, she's on Earth fighting with John Constantine and Arrow and Flash and Legends and whatever. You know, Supergirl. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, out of all the characters, I think the best one that got actual development and actually told a really good story was the Orko character arc. Thankfully, Lukey's dead.
Well, in this issue, they show him in the city again, but he's not dead.
Oh, damn it!
Maybe he had a twin.
God, no, please. All right, issue 15, 0 to 5. What do you give it?
I'll give it a 3.75 and a half.
I gotta give it a 2.
Really?
Yeah. It's just so cheesy. It's basically okay. I do this all the time, and I know some people hate when I do this, but instead of putting a period at the end of a sentence, I will put ... like I'm going to continue my thought. Mm. And that's what issue 15 feels like to me. Especially at the very end where he hands the sword over and it says at the very bottom, never the end. It just feels like it was tacked on. Like they need, like...
Yeah, because with the whole Evelyn and Skeletor being reborn, it felt like, okay, we're pushing the story again.
Yep.
And Adam hands you the sword as if you're putting a period at the end of this sentence of the story, but then it says never the end, which is okay, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Which ending are you going to go with? Is this it or not?
Mm-hmm. I don't think they'll ever do this because it's DC and it's Mattel and, you know, mm-hmm. they just probably won't do this. But when She-Ra said she has to go back to Etheria, that's really what I wanted to see after this. I want a series. It doesn't have to be a long series. Doesn't have to be a new ongoing. Doesn't have to be anything major. Just something where we actually see Etheria. Like, we've had all this stuff on Eternia for God knows how long at this point, and she basically says, with Hordak gone, I now have to help my people of Etheria. So, if Hordak's no longer on Etheria because he's dead, we need to see a story of the Etherian people rising up and reclaiming their planet after. So, that's what we need to see next.
Well, I was glad he actually went back to Etheria, because it feels like in a lot of the other stories, she defeated Hordak and she found her brother and the rest of her family, so she's just going to stay here. Everything's great, la-di-da-di-da. Like, no. There's still an open-ended thread to this that she needs to go back and fix.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, again, you could do, like I said, 5 issues, 6 issues, whatever. They won't do this. I know they won't. But I'm just saying, like, if you were going to wrap up the story in another series, another mini-series, or whatever, have it solely set on Etheria with only going to Eternia every now and then. Because, obviously, we have to find out what the hell's going on with the Evelyn Skeletor thing. But at this point, after us covering all this He-Man stuff and Master stuff, we see Despara, we see them conquering Eternia and everything else, but we've never actually seen in these DC Comics stuff, we've never actually seen Etheria. We've seen Etherian characters and whatever else, like, for example, like, why the hell is Lukey on Eternia? Like, seriously? He's an Etherian character. He should be over there in the Whispering Woods somewhere, hiding, because he only has hiding magic, and it only works for hiding. He can't fight. He's not supposed to. Anyway,
don't tell him that.
I know. But up next we've got He-Man Thundercats. So that's the next series. I wonder what they're gonna do after that, because That, to my knowledge, is supposed to be, like I said before, a limited 6-issue series. So at least with knowing that, we don't have to get our hopes up too high of, He-Man Thundercats ongoing. Any other final thoughts for you before I close this out?
I think I'm good.
We're kind of closing out February here, folks, on a sadly, to quote the Joker, a sadly anticlimactic note. But coming up in March, we've got March is going to be a little strange, folks. We're only going to have 2 episodes in March because I want to start building up other episodes for the year. 2 episodes in March. One is going to be episode 139, which will be Hatteran's Wall number 1 and 2 with myself and Movie Revolt Dan. That's the new series from Kyle Higgins, Alex Siegel, and Rod Rice over at Image Comics. And then episode 140 is 5 years of jumping inside the pull bag. That's right. March 5th, 2017 is our 5-year anniversary. So we'll be having some sort of something for that episode. I don't know exactly what yet. I haven't planned that far ahead. After all, it is only the 4th of February that we're recording this, but it'll be released at the end of the month. So that's what's going on here inside the pull bag. What have you got going on?
Nothing too much at the moment. I don't know if I brought this up in the past, but I do have a separate podcast with one of my good friends titled the Pop Culture Clash Podcast, which I you can find on iTunes. So that's Pop Culture Clash Podcast on iTunes.
Awesome. Yeah, I will definitely put the link in the post so people can go find that on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at The Pullbag is the show Twitter. You can follow at Geekcast Radio for all the other network updates. Mine is TFU and Mike. I know you rarely use it, but what is your Twitter?
At ADasBaron. All one word.
Yep. You can also find him over on Facebook, ADasBaron. I am at TF2 and Mike on Facebook. Follow Geekcast Radio Network. Make sure you visit the website, geekcastradio.com. Make it your greatest game in the comics, and we will catch you next time, folks, for episode 139.
Because the world needs another movie podcast.
The Geekcast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure the Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news,
play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series, where we review noted directors' movies film by film.
Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or GeekCastRadio.com.
We brought the entire convention center to the brink of an inter-genre geek war.
Okay, Michael, if we're going to tackle this podcast thing, we've got to do something really special. It has to be cool, daily, in audio form, and undetectable by radar. Something that screams summer. I know, let's do a Phineas and Ferb review podcast. We'll call it the Podcast Organization Without a Cool Acronym, or POWCA for short. What do you think?
I think if we're not careful, Candace is going to bust us.
You can find POWCA on the Geekcast Radio Network, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and all of the other methods you find podcasts.
We'll give you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at Geekcast Radio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.